In the heart of Mbarara, in Uganda, stood a church known throughout the region, Holy Fire Cathedral. For years, the church was a beacon of hope. People came from villages near and far, Rubindi, Bizuwera, Nyamitanga, to worship, sing and give their offerings with joy. The pastor, Reverend Joel Masiko, was a humble man who had served God faithfully for more than 20 years. His sermon carried the wisdom of elders. His prayers healed the broken. His compassion fed the hungry. But something dark was happening, something that threatened the very heart of Holy Fire Cathedral. Every Sunday, no matter how much people gave, the church accounts remained empty. The elders whispered, the women of the Mothers' Union began to gossip. The youth murmured among themselves, Pastor, is it true we are now behind on rent? Pastor, where is the money for the new roof? Pastor, why did you say the church cannot afford new microphones? Reverend Joe could only shake his head because the truth was simple and painful. The church money was disappearing. Not once, not twice, not occasionally, but every single week. The pastor knew there was only one explanation. Someone was stealing from God. Unknown to the congregation, a silent network of thieves had risen from within, like weeds growing in the middle of a flower garden. The leader, Joshua Okumu, head of the ushering department, tall, disciplined, and well spoken. Everyone trusted him because he was the one who collected the offerings. He was always the first to touch the money and always the first to lie. Deacon Samuel, a man who prayed loudly but feared God little. His position gave him full access to financial discussions. He could alter figures, hide records, and divert funds without anyone suspecting. Timo, the healed man, once a lame beggar who had dragged himself along Mbarara Street. During a crusade, Pastor Joel prayed and Timo stood on his feet for the first time in years. But instead of gratitude, greed grew in him. He joined the gang after Joshua told him, why suffer for God when God has already given us the chance to help ourselves? Timo believed him. Ruth, the choir lady. Her angelic voice melted hearts. Her beauty made half the youth in the church lose concentration. But Ruth had a weakness. She loved money more than her voice. She distracted people during offering time, singing high notes, causing excitement, while Joshua used the moment to slip notes into an offering basket that looked exactly like the church's. Nalogo Brenda, media team leader. She handled the church cameras. She knew where the blind spots were. She knew how to cut video feeds. She could erase and select minutes of service recordings. She was the eye of the gang. Others scattered in the congregations are a woman who always sat at the back, a man who always pretended to count Bibles, two youth ushers who acted as lookouts. Together, they were like termites eating a house from within. To the church members, they looked faithful, dedicated, and hardworking. But to God, they were thieves clothed in holy garments. One Monday morning, the church treasurer, Mama Aisha, walked into the pastor's office urgently. Pastor, this is now too much, she said, her voice trembling. We counted 2.7 million shillings yesterday, but today only 950,000 is remaining in the safe. Pastor Joel removed his glasses. His heart sank. This was the third time the amount had dropped mysteriously overnight. Something had to be done. That evening, he met with the church board. There was Elder Mugisher, stern and respected. There was Deacon Samuel, the thief in disguise. There was Elder Grace, Elder Musime, and a few others. Pastor Joel explained everything. When he finished, Elder Mugisha slammed the table. This is unacceptable. We must tighten security. The pastor nodded. Exactly. Starting next Sunday, we need to, but before he could finish, Deacon Samuel, the inner snake, quickly suggested, Pastor, let the ushers be strange and let them continue counting alone. They are trustworthy. Besides, if we involve many people, rumors will spread. Knowing fully well they had more members in the congregation and would switch the old ushers with their other members. Pastor Joel hesitated. Something in his spirit felt wrong, but the rest of the board nodded, agreeing with Deacon Samuel. And so, like a doctor whose medicine only made the sickness worse, the church board decisions protected the thieves. The pastor tried everything. Measure 1, counting the money in the pastor's office. The money still vanished overnight because the thieves had a spare key. Measure 2, installing new CCTV cameras. 2 weeks passed and the money kept disappearing. Why? Because Brenda in the media team deleted the footage daily. Measure 3, counting the money in the safe and sealing it. The seal was always found broken in the morning. Measure 4, changing the ushering team. But Joshua, the head of the gang, who is the head of ushering, just reshuffled his members, replacing old thieves with new ones. At this point, the pastor began to suspect something. The thieves were inside the board, but he had no proof, no witness, no camera footage, no trustworthy elder to confide in. He was alone. Until one night, something happened that changed. Pastor Joel had a dream. He was standing in the sanctuary, and a giant hand wrote on the wall with fire. Truth is in the shadows. Do not trust those who shout the loudest. Watch in secret. He awoke trembling. Immediately, he knew he needed help from outside the church. Someone with no bias, someone with no alliance, someone with no fear of church politics, a professional, a private investigator. In the early hours of the morning, Pastor Joel took a boda to the office of Detective Kalema, a discreet and intelligent investigator known across southwestern Uganda. Kalema was lean, sharp-eyed, and spoke in soft tones. "What do you need, Reverend?" he asked. Pastor Joel sighed deeply. "I need the truth, and I need it without anyone knowing." Kalema leaned back. "I can find your thieves, Pastor, but you must promise me one thing." "What is it?" "That when I expose them, you will allow justice to do its work, even if the thieves are people you love." The pastor felt a pang in his chest, but he nodded. "I want God's house to be clean. Do whatever it takes." And so the operation began. Kalema attended the church the following Sunday. He sat among the congregation like an ordinary visitor. He watched everything with hawk-like eyes. He noticed how Joshua moved during offerings, how Ruth sang louder exactly when people began giving, how two ushers coordinated eye signals, how Brenda mysteriously shut off her camera for technical reasons. Kalema saw it all, but he wasn't ready to strike. He needed evidence. That night, Kalema installed 3 hidden cameras in places no one would suspect: inside the flower stand, behind a loose brick near the pulpit, inside the air vents facing the counting table. None of these cameras were connected to the media team. Only he had the receiver. He also placed a tiny motion sensor inside the safe, too small for the thieves to notice. Then he waited. It was a Tuesday. The youth had choir practice. The mothers were cleaning the church. The board had just ended a meeting. By 9 p.m., the building was empty, or so everyone thought. At exactly 11:16 p.m., the motion sensor beeped on Kalema's device. He rushed to the church with his team. Meanwhile, inside the sanctuary, Joshua and Timo were quietly opening the safe. Ruth stood near the door, humming to alert them if anyone came. 2 other members guarded the windows. Brenda was checking for cameras with a flashlight. "Make it fast," whispered Brenda. Joshua grinned as he stuffed envelopes into a black bag. "God has blessed us again today." Suddenly, the door burst open, and Detective Kalema stormed in with 2 officers. "Freeze!" The thieves scattered like rats in the light, but the officers were quick. Timo slipped and fell near the altar, screaming. Ruth tried to run but was caught by her wrist. Brenda dashed for the back exit, but Kalema himself blocked her path. Meanwhile, Joshua stood silently as though frozen. The head usher, the respected leader, looked as guilty as a goat in a maze garden. Kalema played the captured footage on his tablet. There was no denying it. the thieves were caught red-handed. At 3 a.m., Pastor Joel arrived at church. His heart was heavy. He had prayed this moment would never come, but deep inside, he had known it was inevitable. When he saw the thief sitting on the floor, handcuffed, his heart broke. Joshua lowered his head in shame. Ruth sobbed uncontrollably. Timo trembled. Even Samuel, the deacon who had sneaked in to check what was happening, was exposed by earlier recordings. The pastor stood before them and spoke with tears in his eyes. Why? Why would you steal from God's house? Joshua replied weakly, Pastor, temptation was too strong. The money was just there every week. We were struggling. We needed it. Pastor Josh shook his head. You were not struggling. You were greedy. The people who gave that money had less than you. Widows, farmers, border riders, and students. They trusted us. Ruth looked up, her voice trembling. Pastor, please forgive us. But the pastor turned to Kalema. Do what must be done. When the news spread, Holy Fire Cathedral was shaken. Some cried, some felt betrayed, some were angry beyond words. But Pastor Joel stood on the pulpit and preached one of the most powerful sermons the church had ever heard. A church is not a building, it is a heart. And when the heart is sick, God sends truth like medicine, sometimes bitter, sometimes painful, but always necessary. He continued, Forgiveness is our calling, but accountability is God's law. When you steal from God, you steal from the poor, the hungry, the needy, and the desperate. The congregation nodded through tears. With the thieves removed, the church finances healed almost immediately. The offerings increased, the project restarted, the new roof was installed, the children's department received new chairs, the missionary work expanded, the church name regained its honor, and Detective Kalema remained a close friend to the ministry. But Pastor Joel never forgot the lesson. Even in the holiest place can hide the darkest hearts. But truth, no matter how long it is buried, will always rise. Thus, Holy Fire Cathedral became a testimony in all of Umbarara, a testimony of watchfulness, truth, accountability, and God's justice. Moral of this story is those who steal from God rob themselves of their own destiny. Dishonesty inside the house of God is more dangerous than an enemy outside. No matter how long evil hides, truth will eventually expose it. Hi, lovelies. If you listen to the end, thank you. And make sure you don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This story is dedicated to my Ugandan family. If you wish to see more stories depicting other African countries, culture, please drop a comment and let's discuss. See you next week. Bye.